By the way, what do you actually think? Because like I said, the real problem is, because Cloud9 made it and they've looked a bit rocky themselves, no one's really thinking of like the impact. Like obviously in Europe, we're all prepped for G2 to win. We're like, right, what will that mean for like caps? And Flaccid will have 2 titles when they go international. But no one's really actually thinking, what if these teams win? So what if actually, Yasukeh, Cloud9 wins this LCS? Like, what does it say about NAs? Is there any special significance to Cloud9 or to these players or the swap from the LS? What do you think? What would the meaning be if Cloud9 won to you?
I mean, it would just show how much Cloud9 is. They not only just care about winning, because like TSM, for all of their ills, like it looks like they still genuinely tried. Like they got
I think they just did a bad job picking the players.
Yeah. Like they got completely ruined by some like money laundering stuff and all of that.
There's that as well too. Sure.
They still consistently tried to. All right, what kind of rosters can we make? Can we put solo on the team? Like they legit still to the end tried to win.
Yeah.
And Cloud9 was put in a situation where their MVP of the league leaves. Their support is just trash. Like so many different pieces need to be swapped, and they still find some way to make it work. And Cloud9 just consistently does this time and time and time again, that just having another notch in that belt just really proves that if you're looking for a team that's not going to spend as much money as Team Liquid, but it's still going to be legit, like it's just going to be Cloud9.
You know, by the way, on that TSM angle, that's how dumb fans are. Because again, that's one of those ones, like I say, you go back and listen to the Four Horsemen one, all the things I have to speculate just are what's happening, but I don't have like the ironclad proof to say it, so I have to say it, speculate it's happening, but I just nail it all. Same as, spoiler, same thing, go back to Summoning Insight a few years back, I nailed everything about Doublelift not signing with TSM and how he actually wanted like Sword Art to come, and then there was he at the time on stream lied, and then later, because he's Doublelift, misremembered the story years later and accidentally just said all the shit I'd said like 2 years. Because that's what I love about Doublelift. It's like, you know that famous saying, like, you know, like sit by the river and let the bodies of your enemies float by. It's like, no, just sit by the river and let Doublelift just fucking contradict what he said earlier and just wreck himself. Like, you don't even have to beat this guy. He's just one of those guys. Just let him talk. Yeah. Let him talk. Let him speak more. That'll ruin him entirely. So yeah, with that whole angle, that's one thing I find so whack, mate. Oh, wait, where were we on that topic? What were we
talking about the teams and the legacy of the teams if they win and where they're going to go from, like their positioning, like what it means for C9 to win.
That was it, yes. Yeah, the other point I was going to say was that is I actually think that's what's so silly about the fact that because here's the saddest thing about TSM. Clearly Doublelift, maybe Lena, and definitely TSM fans actually really like Peter Zhang. You can tell because they went out of their way to defend him to the ends of the earth. By the way, he's not even a Native American. He is Chinese. In the modern climate, you could even see people going fucked up against that, also like taken out. But what's mad is when they defended him, they said all my points were invalid. So I said all that stuff. Actually, it sounds like, I had to speculate. What if he was, saying I'll be the agent between, but then he would find out from TSM what type of player they want in a shortlist. Then he'd go to a bottom player on the shortlist and then go to them and go, I am the one who will be suggesting people. So if I was to say your name, maybe you would get signed. And if you got signed for, I don't know, $3 million, maybe you would give me 500,000 and I'll say to them, you're signing for, you know what I mean? Like 3 million, 5 or whatever. And that obviously I had to go like, what a crazy idea. It's just in the abstract, the ether or whatever. Well, the joke is some of that does sound like what was happening. And TSM fans are too dumb to realise there's your out. That even makes Reginald and Path not look that bad. If what actually happened was, not only did you have all the problems the previous year with the Sword Art, but also this guy wasn't even getting you the right players and was suggesting potentially bad players because he has a shady deal with them for money. That even sort of makes your competitive failures not as bad because you were given bad... It's like I always say this. There's a lot of dictators who, for obvious reasons, have a bad rep. But another reason why they're always going to seem crazy is nobody's feeding them accurate information because everyone around them scared they'll be killed. Or you think I'm going to... So as a result, if you're just fed all the wrong signals all the time, of course you're going to make appalling decisions. You're going to make what you think's a genius decision, but it's wrong because every input was wrong. That's even sort of what happened to TSM. So I agree. The joke is, I've never thought that they were actually just phoning it in or doing a Golden Guardians that just spend as little money as possible. I think actually they genuinely thought these were all real contender worlds rosters. They just had idiots make the choices or they got scammed, and a couple of players just fucking flopped, didn't they? There's also a couple that were good that just flopped as well. You can't say there was none of that. So, yeah, the TSM one's legit. The problem with some of the other teams is I definitely think there are plenty of other teams that, let's be real, even though they did win NA, I actually think EG's decision essentially says, I'm not actually about winning the first split, even though they did win the first split. That was more I do want to have these guys for 3 years, and, you're probably winning next year. Let's just, get to the finals this time, or Worlds this time. I think that was even sort of the idea. It's just it turned out NA was whack, all the super teams filled, and they just got us actually walked to a spring championship. That's kind of actually weird. I don't even know if they play planned for that. Because I do think they were going like the rebuild route and the fucking other approach, you know. So who knows? Yeah, who knows? Like there's not that many teams that do try to win in Cloud9 Team Liquid. Like, as much as everyone's styling on Team Liquid, at least here's the thing that is whack. I agree the roster didn't work, the super team. But you can't blame the guy for trying to spend like $7 million to make an actual team that, look, in his mind, maybe could win Worlds or something, you know, or go to the finals or something. That's cool. Like, spoiler, we want people in here to do that. That's why those stories, which sadly seem true, that all the salaries are going to go down next year, they're not going to import as much. That's actually going to make NA even worse. No one's going to give a fuck. Yep. This TL lineup, when it was first made, was like, hey, this could be cooking with gas. Imagine if this is good. Yeah, why not?
Like, I thought that they could go to semis of MSI or maybe even a finals of MSI or quarters in Worlds, and it would still be a failure. Like, that's the level of expectations that we had for this team. And I still think that pretty much all of the players on this team, except for Bjergsen, once they go their separate ways, because this Team Liquid super team is not going to stay, once they go their separate ways, I think they're all going to go back to looking legit. Like, it's similar. It's a similar story to like 2019 Misfits. I think it was 2019, where it's a super team that they're the worst team in the league. Like, there's no way that it's not just some kind of weird like player idiosyncrasies together. That a lot of those players, if they did go to a team, like they should look a lot better when they're away from that team. Didn't happen that way, but like it should have been that way.
Sure. And then if we do 100 Thieves, Kerie, like one thing I'll set up is this, because everyone actually forgets narratives. Everyone thinks they're easy. Like, anyone could do like a Theon article. You'd all fail, by the way. You'd all have a shit narrative that wouldn't even make sense. The narrative of 100 Thieves that I keep trying to bring up, but no one else fucking bites you on my talk shows, they just ignore me, is that TL themselves, 100 Thieves themselves, basically in spring, because they also thought they were going to win the finals, remember, their whole angle was sort of like... They fucking all doubt us. They don't believe we can go. They think we were a fluke, but look, we got back to the finals and we proved that we were actually, and now we're going to win it again. And they thought they were going back to back. I get the vibe that is still the thing in their camp, because obviously they kept the same team, no changes, no upgrades. They had the Worlds where they weren't going to do anything, and a lot of people think they're capped, right? They got that one style. You live or die by Abadage. You play this type of a comp. You have a chance. You've got a team fight front to back, like you say, all the classic gimmicks. So I think the whole thing with them was like the idea that, like, because no one's thinking yet, what if they win? Obviously, again, no one's actually projected forwards. I think that myself, what would happen if they win? If they've won and they've been in three finals in a row, won two of them, even kept the same exact lineup, let other people get... In a way, I have to give it up to them, right? That's pretty sick.
It's a little era, you know? It's like a little...
yeah, it is.
It's not as good as like the TL and TSM runs of... the TL run of old. But it's
pretty legit, right?
It's a very, very legit run. It's actually... For the same lineup, it's actually one of the best runs, holistically, like ever, if they do end up making this final. The other narrative that I like to point out as a Jensen lover and believer is Jensen, with Bjergsen's shit placings, Jensen has now placed better than Bjergsen on the super team, better than Bjergsen on the super team, with a worse version of the super team.
Okay.
Because
that was the counter. If you ever brought up one, now Jensen's got two titles. They were like, yeah, but he played with the super team and like double it. You know, yeah, that's true. That was the angle, wasn't it?
So Jensen made back-to-back finals of his versions of the super teams, and like game fives almost in both something. Bjergsen doesn't know what a fucking final smells like. He'll never get to know what a fucking final smells like with this team. That one's completely over. That's a doozy. Didn't even get to that one. The other really good one for Jensen, obviously, that we talked about later, is he gets to get out of the shadow of the double lift. You know, he gets to have 1-1 outside of double lift. You know, he gets to say like, yeah, I've got this one. It stands alone. He's got Blabber with him, who's a multiple MVP. He's got arguably the best player in the league with them, and Berserker, but still he is like an integral player, he's a veteran player, he is the mid laner, mid-laners are always important. And obviously, you have EG, they're going for back-to-back. EG's going for back-to-back titles. They want to be one of the dynasty teams. Like all the great teams before them, most of them all have back-to-back titles. Can EG put themselves in that pantheon? Yeah, they've got to change the ADC. Will they be joining it? I don't think so. I think they're the team that's going out most likely in third. I think we're going to get a run back of 100 Thieves in the final against a different opponent. But that's what lower bracket games are for. They're there to prove your mettle. I would actually say those teams. I actually think EG's got more mental resilience in the close nail-biting games, particularly because they've came through that lower bracket, that grilling lower bracket themselves. And I'm not sure how teams that like pull themselves out, like 100 Thieves did versus TL, sometimes can go into like a death spiral where you just end up like continuously playing worse. I actually agree with the Yasukeh though. If I was to bet, I would say 100 Thieves will play like better across the board in the next 2 series. I think they'll play.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.